Welcome back to the Defend Lincoln Riley show. That's what this show is just slowly but surely becoming. So this report was flying around a couple of days ago, and I wanted to address it because I have thoughts, shall we say, as is usually the case, hence the nature of this very show. So USC apparently didn't want to play LSU in Las Vegas this year in the Vegas Kickoff Classic. It's a Sunday kickoff. It'll be on ABC. It's at Allegiant Stadium, neutral site, and they didn't want to play that game. And if you just looked at that on the surface, you'd go, wow, they're scared of LSU. You mean a program that won a national championship 5 years ago? Okay, well, I mean, there are less intimidating programs that if you were scared of, I'd be judging you. LSU is not exactly one of them with Brian Kelly going into year 3. But when you look at the rest of USC's schedule, having LSU on there, yeah, it could bolster it if you get a win. Heck, I feel decent about USC's chances in that game. But if you're poo-pooing on Lincoln Riley for wanting to get out of this game, I don't think you're looking at the larger context here, because I'm going to read you the rest of USC's schedule without the LSU game in there. Utah State at home. By the way, they have a perfect alternation. It's kind of satisfying to look at, of home and road. Utah State home, at Michigan following a bye. Host Wisconsin. We're talking about them later in the show. At Minnesota. That's October 5th. Host Penn State. At Maryland. Host Rutgers. At Washington. Host Nebraska. That's the stretch right there. Maryland, Rutgers, Washington, Nebraska. Where if USC goes 4-0, they're probably going to be in pretty good shape. Then they go at UCLA. So frankly, that's a stretch where they could go 5-1. I expect them to at least go 4-1 in those games. They end the year hosting Notre Dame. So their home slate has got a lot of big games. Penn State, Notre Dame, Wisconsin. Big, big games to be played at the Coliseum. If I just read you that schedule and then threw in, I don't know, an FCS opponent, which they don't have on their schedule, which I commend them for, by the way. I mean, a lot of teams do. I understand why. Makes a lot of sense. USC does not have that here. You can't tell me that USC's dodging anybody or that USC, I mean, they tried to, but of course they didn't. Can't tell me that USC doesn't have a strong schedule, because they do. USC is foregoing a bye game, an easy win, a 1-0 automatic start to the year to play a big-time nationally televised game, and they couldn't get out of it. But if I put an FCS opponent in there, that is still a really hard schedule. And I've been high on USC this offseason because I like the transfer moves. I like the defensive coordinator change. And Lincoln Riley's still a good head coach. I know I'm supposed to think he's the village idiot. I just don't hold that particular belief. So the rest of that schedule is fairly daunting. It works out well in that their toughest games end up being at home. But this isn't even a home and home with LSU. This is a neutral site game. You're not playing this at the Coliseum. You're not going to Death Valley so that they can then show up to the Coliseum next year. This is just a one-off game that they're just playing. And so when you think about them trying to get out of it, how exactly is that different than, let me think. Let me think if I can picture a team that got out of a non-conference battle that would have been tougher and it worked out. Oh, that's right, the team that just won the national championship. You can dislike schedule manipulation all you want. And hey, I don't know if there's a bigger critic of college football scheduling out there in this landscape than myself. I think it's patently absurd. I commend USC for having this absolute gauntlet of a schedule that has their win total at 7.5. They are, I think, an 8.5 or 9.5 caliber team in terms of what their preseason win total should be. But, they've got a really, really tough schedule here. And yeah, the road games, not as tough other than going at Michigan. No, at Washington, that's not going to be a cakewalk. I think USC is a better team and they probably win that game in November. But that LSU game doesn't need to be there. It's it's just another opportunity for them to lose. And they don't need it to bolster their non-conference slate because they play Notre Dame the last week of the regular season. They always play Notre Dame. And I think that's fine. But then you don't need to play LSU, because I do get annoyed at what Michigan has been able to do the last couple of years. They canceled a home and home with UCLA. There would have been at least some interesting games in there, and they canceled them, and they scheduled some cupcakes, and then UCLA and Michigan were just coasting through their non-conference slates. That's not good for college football. I don't like that. But USC is playing its conference schedule, a 9-game slate, and they have a high-quality non-conference opponent in there. My standard baseline expectation for a major power school, for me to not rip on your non-conference slate, is you can have one FCS, one group of 5, and one legit Power 4 or Power 5, back in the previous years when talking about all this sort of stuff. USC's accomplished that. Utah State, group of 5. Could have swapped out LSU for, I don't know, Eastern Washington. I don't care. You got Notre Dame on this slate. You can't say they're trying to set up some cupcake schedule. That's the first angle. The second angle I come at this with is, how many times have we seen schedule manipulation work out over in the SEC? They have some ACC non-conference matchups that make for some difficult football games, to be fair. But the late season cupcake has drawn the ire of many a college football pundits over the years, including Joel Klatt, not limited to him. Josh Pate's talked about it. Everybody's talked about it because it's ridiculous, right? And they take the heat for it, but guess what? They still get to do it, and it works, and they get that essentially bye week late in the season when everybody else is playing a legitimately tough opponent. It's absurd. It's absurd. So I don't think it's out of bounds for USC to say, can we manipulate our schedule a little bit? Because if I win that game, great, but I'm going to get a lot more flack for a loss to begin the season than I am credit for a win because of the rest of the schedule. USC's not going to go 12-0. Not going to happen. And getting wins, it matters a lot to the fans. It matters a lot to the donors. It matters a lot to the athletic department. And that game, it's a one-off. It is a one-off game. I don't know when they knew they were going to play Notre Dame, what exactly they were thinking that they wanted to play LSU as well. Again, I commend them for doing it, but tactically, does it make a lot of sense? No, it absolutely does not, because you have a tough enough schedule. You have enough quality opponents on there. If you beat Notre Dame and you beat either Michigan or Penn State, you're going to have 2 wins against top 10, 15 caliber teams this season. And that's more than enough. Wisconsin could be all right. Washington could be okay. I think Nebraska could be pretty good. Like your RPI, your strength of schedule is going to be respectable with or without that game. Now, the upside and the shred of optimism I will give the Trojan fans here is that if they beat LSU in that game, you're going to be feeling really, really good. You're going to be feeling really, really good. But with the season they had a year ago, I still think a loss is going to feel worse than a win would feel good. Because you win that game, we got through one test, we get Utah State next week, and then we have to do what? We got to go play who? We got to go to Michigan. Oh, we got to go play Michigan. I don't know who Michigan's quarterback is going to be. Nobody really does. But that's still a tough road environment. That's still incredibly tough. So I don't think it is ridiculous. Though normally, I would say scheduling a non-conference game like that is going to draw a lot of eyeballs is really, really fun. Interesting matchup, big storylines there. Week 1, starting the season off. No, bye week or tune up against an FCS. Yeah, all that is really, really fun. Not denying that. Tactically, though, I think USC was plenty smart and within reason in the college football landscape to say, can we try and get this game off schedule? And they couldn't do it. And it's going to be one of the most interesting non-conference games early in the year. Again, it's on a Sunday. It's Sunday, September 1st, ABC, Allegiant Stadium. You should have a majority Trojan crowd there. I would hope so. LA to Vegas, that's an easy flight. I've made it many a times. It's not expensive, and it's not very hard. So you should have a good contingent of Trojan fans there. It's going to be a fun football game regardless. But no, I don't think USC should be criticized for trying to get out of that. Lots of teams are trying to get out of that, and teams have gotten out of less challenging contests many a times before. One team on USC's schedule is Wisconsin. Where do they actually fit in the Big Ten landscape? Why don't we talk about that next? Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA with the finals right around the corner and the NHL playoffs heating up as well. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. You can bet everything you want for college football too. The season is just under 2.5 months away. Do you understand that? You can bet games, win totals, conference title odds, national championship odds. I'd lean towards Georgia there. Whatever you want, FanDuel has got it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every playoff shot count. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and our official sportsbook sponsor here at the Locked On Network.